Hi Year 8, I hope you're doing well. I've decided to do a feedback video for this week as well, just because I'm aware there were some issues accessing Microsoft Teams yesterday, which means some of you may not have been able to attend the meeting even though you tried to. So if you did attend the meeting yesterday, the feedback meeting, you don't need to watch this video, but if you didn't, please do keep going just so that you get the same feedback as everyone else had. Okay, so as usual, this is weekly feedback based on the work that you completed last week. This session will contain the following. We're going to celebrate a couple of things and then we're going to focus on some areas to revisit. Okay, again, based on that quiz that you completed last week. First things first, I want to celebrate a couple of things. Our average score was 78%, which is fantastic. All right, we do like to aim for around 80% to show that we've truly mastered a topic, but we're very close to that with that score. All right, and a lot of you did get 100%, 90%, 80%. In the meeting, I did have a list of who that was, but with this video being pre-recorded, I haven't included them. But well done. Okay, that does show really good understanding of the knowledge. And the question that we did best on was which word means the use of humour or sarcasm is used to say the opposite of what is really meant, and that correct word was irony. All right, if you say that something is ironic, it generally means that humour or sarcasm is being used to describe it. So a few things that I do just want to revisit based on the answers that you guys left for the quiz. Generally, if less than 80% is achieved on average on a question, that tends to just flag to me that that's something we just need to revisit just so that we can ensure that your understanding is as secure as it needs to be. So the first thing I'm going to look at is a juxtaposition. Now, a juxtaposition occurs when you place two things close together so that the differences or the contrast between them is emphasised, okay? If you're juxtaposing things against each other, you generally have opposites. And it's normally to emphasise something, okay? Or to make something really clear. So let's look at a few examples, and we're going to consider in each one what two things are being compared in each. The first one here, making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, the two things being compared are the mountain and the molehill. Okay, and what do we know about mountains and molehills? Well, they're both kind of shaped similarly. All right, however, a mountain is a whole lot bigger than a molehill, okay, very much substantially larger. Okay, and what this phrase tends to mean, making a mountain out of a molehill, it tends to infer that you're making a bigger deal out of something than it necessarily needs, and that is shown by the fact that you're making something really big out of something really, really small. But by having the juxtaposition of those two words next to each other, that really highlights that for us. Moving on to the second example there, better late than never. The two things being juxtaposed here, we've got late than never, okay? And by putting these two things together, all right, what you're doing is you're making late sound better. Obviously, on time would be ideal in this scenario, all right, but it is better to be late than never, okay? And by comparing the two, you're making late sound better because it's not never, if that makes sense. But you are juxtaposing the two, okay? And it's emphasising that late is better than never. All right, literally what the phrase is saying. And then finally, that third example there, all's fair in love and war. Now, the two things being juxtaposed are love and war. You'd normally think these two didn't really have much of a connection. Obviously, love is romance and passion and all those kinds of things, and war is brutal and fighting and death and all these things. What this phrase is saying is that all is fair in love and war. And it's kind of making that link between the two. And what it does is it sets these two things up that are complete opposites, but makes that link between them. And makes that contrast, and it makes you think about how love could be like war and how war could be like love. You know, at times love can be brutal and things like that, you know. So it is just setting up that juxtaposition really does emphasise a link between the two in that example. So generally, if we're looking at any texts or poems or anything like that, and you do see these two kind of opposites popped next to each other, then that's normally to emphasise something, okay, if you've got something that's been juxtaposed. Moving on to the next thing, one of the questions I wanted to look at. In the poem Caged Bird, what did the contrast between the caged and free bird represent? Okay, and I've included the first two stanzas of the poem on the screen here, and I'll read through them quickly and then talk a bit more about this question. So a free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. Now, what we've got here in your first stanza, you've literally got a free bird, okay? So this is almost being set up kind of like a juxtaposition. You've got the free bird here, followed by the bird that's stuck in its cage down here. All right, there's a definite contrast going on, and the reason they've done that by including all this description about the free bird at the start, it makes the reader think about how, yes, this is how birds are supposed to be. They're supposed to be free to be able to do this and that and dip their wings and, you know, fly amongst the sunlight. And then all of a sudden you get this bird that's been captured, that's being kept in a cage, and the idea is it's meant to make the audience go, well, this isn't how birds are supposed to be treated. Okay, and to summarise sort of an answer to this question, is in the poem The Caged Bird, the contrast between the caged bird and the free bird represents the impact of oppression and racial inequality. Okay, so that's what's going on here, okay, by having that comparison, that juxtaposition of the two. And then finally, I wanted to look at this question here. So which poem was a powerful protest against apartheid? Just as a reminder, apartheid was a system of legislation that upheld segregationist policies against non-white citizens of South America. Now, as an example, segregation is when you separate people into groups. For example, if you had a school that kept boys and girls separate, that would be, the groups would be segregated from each other. Okay, so segregation is apart, integration is together. Okay. And this is what apartheid did. It was a system of legislation that upheld this separating of groups against non-white citizens in South Africa, okay? But Nothing's Changed is an angry poem that's about the experience of returning to South Africa after the system of racial separation called apartheid had been overturned. So somebody has returned to South Africa, apartheid is no longer a thing, so segregation is no longer officially a thing. However, they still find that it's not a lot is different, unfortunately, because apartheid was a system in which the majority black population were treated little better than slaves, and even though it's ended, they perhaps find themselves still not being treated any better than they were before. Okay, and this is why it's a protest against apartheid. That would have been, if you were part of the meeting, I would have asked any questions just there. But otherwise, that is all for now. Well done for all of your hard work. It has been fantastic. Usually these meetings will take place on Tuesdays, okay? So please keep an eye on your Shoma homework and your team's calendar. I only did it on a Wednesday this week because you had screen-free day yesterday. But we would regularly do these on a Tuesday at the time that you would normally have your English lesson. So check your timetable for that if you need to know. Beforehand, I will try and give you notice that the meetings are taking place. And when we were in the meeting today, I asked whether people wanted to do this weekly or fortnightly, and the majority voted weekly. So I will start making these live meetings a weekly thing, okay? But hopefully all of us can come to the live Teams meeting, and then you won't need to sit and watch this as well. Okay, because it's just really good to have that interaction as a class. But next week is half term, so no lessons next week, no feedback video next week, okay? So everything will then be up the week after that, the week beginning the 22nd of February. Have a fantastic half term, and hopefully I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for everything you've been sending in. Well done. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.